Hi, I'm Wayne Janner with MisterOlathe.com at Keller Williams Realty. You know, these days, I don't think I can get in a conversation on any given day where the word foreclosure or short sale doesn't come up. So I thought I'd spend a few minutes in our latest video series blog and talk to you about foreclosures, because there's always a lot of questions surrounding it, and there's a lot of misinformation out there, and that's probably why. Well, let me share a little bit with you. When you talk about foreclosures and that whole thing, there's really about three things that come into play. We're talking about foreclosures, REOs, and short sales. Let's start with foreclosures. Now, there's a lot of misinformation, as I indicated earlier, because there's a lot of information out there that people are trying to sell you. There's a list of foreclosure homes, there's foreclosure websites. I can remember a family I was working with in Olathe, and they had sent me a link to a website about a home, 2,700 square foot, 4-bedroom home, and the price next to it was $22,348. Well, let me tell you how that works. These foreclosure websites, basically they're publishing information that's publicly available on the internet through the courthouse. So in this particular circumstance, what they had taken was the filing of the second mortgage, the amount of that filing, and the photo of the home, and put it on the internet. Now, the small print indicates at the bottom that, sale is subject to title work and other lien releases, etc. Okay, so what that really means is, oh, by the way, there's also a $190,000 first mortgage that has to be paid off to buy this home. You see, these foreclosure sites, they're in the business of selling information, not assisting people in buying foreclosed homes. So unless you're in the business of where you're using that information on a daily basis to generate revenue for some other type of service, I can't recommend spending the money on that kind of stuff. What you can do is understand how the foreclosure process works. As I indicated, they're taking information that's filed at the courthouse. So when it gets filed at the courthouse, that's where the foreclosure process starts. That means that people are a few months late on their payments, and foreclosure has been filed by the bank. The biggest thing is, remember, is that the difference between foreclosure and for sale. They're two completely different things. Let me tell you what I mean. When it goes into foreclosure, the seller is probably still living in the home. The owner of the home still resides there. They may even have plans to get caught up in the mortgage. Maybe they got laid off. Now they have a new job. They're getting caught up, and they're getting it worked out with the bank. There's also loan modification programs out there. They haven't been exceedingly successful. I've heard numbers that only about 50% of the people that actually apply get through those programs. But for some people it does work, and they do work out ways to avoid the foreclosure and stay in their home. So they actually are in no interest in selling their property whatsoever. The process at that point, once it's filed, is actually kind of slow also. Banks are overwhelmed with foreclosures, and also there's financial situations as far as their assets where they're trying to balance that out. That affects their stock prices, a whole lot of things that have nothing to do with the house itself. So at the point they file the foreclosure, we don't know how long that process is going to take before it's over. The bank kind of sets the timetable on that, and there's really sometimes no rhyme or reason as to what it is. The next thing that would occur, though, is once they go to the foreclosure, let's say the owner is not doing anything to remedy their situation, it goes to what's called a sheriff's sale. You've probably heard this. The sheriff's at the courthouse steps is doing an auction, and they're selling homes that have reached that point in foreclosure. Now, I've had people say to me, okay, well great, I can just show up to the sheriff's sale and I can buy a foreclosure that way. True, you can do that. Let me explain how that works. You're paying cash, sight unseen. Cash, sight unseen, period. So not many homes are sold that way. And a matter of fact, the first bid on the auction is going to be made by the first lien holder, the first mortgage holder. They're going to come out and say, okay, the opening bid on this is $179,487.32. It's going to be a very specific number on whatever the payout is. Most of the time, you'll find that it goes right back to the bank because no one is willing to pay whatever is owed on it. Fact of the matter is if somebody's got a lot of equity in their home and there's not much owed on the mortgage, the chances of them going into foreclosure are a lot less. There are certain investors, a small circle of people that are in that business that have cash and they're willing to wait for that opportunity that may come along, and they are very few and far between. if you think you're in a position where you could be one of those cash buying sight unseen buyers, we should probably sit down and talk. There's probably less risky things in the real estate environment right now where you could be putting your money and getting a good return. Okay, but let's move on. Okay, we go to the sheriff's sale, so it goes back to the first lender. And at that point, the lender then holds the rights to it, but the owner of the home isn't completely out. In the state of Kansas, there's what's called a redemption period, which extends for 90 days. In other words, during that 90-day period, the seller has an opportunity to remedy, come good on the loan, and keep the home. So during that time, the bank cannot sell the property. They have no interest in selling the property. So by the time that 90 days is up, from the initial first closing, as you can see, right at this point, several months have already passed, and the home is still not available to the general public. Now, some banks are getting better. They're getting better at processing these, so maybe at the end of that 90 days, on day 91, boom, the sign's in the yard, they're ready to go. Because of the heavy volume of foreclosures, what happens is they do list these with real estate companies. Okay, and they are actually going to be on the MLS system with all the other homes for sale. Now, keep in mind, some banks aren't organized. At day 90, they still may not have their act together. I've actually seen homes that could, after that point, could still sit empty 6, 8 months, up to a year before anything happens on them. Try calling the bank, even leave a message if you want, you won't get any information. If they're that overwhelmed, they're not going to be returning calls to either real estate professionals or people interested in buying. You just have to wait for the process in most cases. Now, at that point, let's say the bank gets all that done, then we move on to the next part, which is what's called an REO, which stands for real estate owned. And at that point, the bank has everything worked out. They put the home out there for sale. This is actually, if you're looking to buy a foreclosure home, this is where it fits in. There's some great opportunities out there, and this is an opportunity to get houses under market value. And it's not that bad of a process. If you've heard nightmares about the foreclosure process, really those are all over by that point the house reaches this point. It's pretty easy to go in, make an offer, you'll be able to view the home. Now the banks generally won't fix anything. You're still looking at an as-is situation, but you can obtain financing to purchase these homes depending on the condition of the home. Now generally I say banks won't fix anything, but there are some exceptions to that. On lending guidelines, there's what's called Fannie Mae guidelines. You've heard of Fannie Mae, and one of the things they put on is guidelines on which a property's condition must be met to be sold. The bank may have a property that, maybe they can make some minor repairs to meet those Fannie Mae guidelines. They may go ahead and do that because opening up more financing options in the long run may give them a return to sell the property, at a higher price with better terms because there's a larger pool of buyers because you're dealing with people that can get loans. More than likely, they'll do that work before it comes on the market, and they know what those guidelines are to meet. Now, if a property needs so much work that they can't get there, they may say, nah, the investment's not just worth it, it's as is, and we'll just market the property to cash buyers. So it's kind of on a case-by-case basis. Now, if you're in those situations, you put down an offer, they're going to expect you to close in 30 days. I mean, it's a pretty quick process. So you really can't be in a position where you have a house to sell, for example. You need to be in the point where you're ready to close in 30 days. Let's see, even if let's say you have a house to sell, but it is sold, it's under contract, it's going to close and you're going to buy on this. With a foreclosure, let's say something happens with your deal. Your deal falls through, you can't buy the bank property. Guess what? Too bad. They don't care. They will keep your earnest money, they will sell the property to somebody else. That's the way it works. So there is a little bit of risk in that regard about it. So buying a foreclosure property really is a good way to get into real estate, get an opportunity where you're getting something under market value. Let's move on to the last category, which is short sales. Probably heard nightmare stories about short sales, and probably most of them are true. It is a tough process. What short sale is, it means that the person that owns the home is selling it short of what is owed on the mortgage. So what happens is that you get into negotiation with the seller to purchase a short sale, or vice versa if you are the seller. You come to an agreed upon price, and then what you're doing is submitting it to your lender for them to approve the short sale. Okay? Some of the banks have got better in their processing, but when I say they've got better, that means they might be able to do it in 6 weeks. There are situations where it's been 6 months. We've In our office, I know of a couple of deals that have taken a year. It can be a nightmare, especially if you're dealing with a lender who is, say, not one of the larger lenders, like a Bank of America, Citi Mortgage, Chase, or if you're dealing with a situation where there are more than one mortgages. It can be a process. So you can't get into a short sale unless you've got flexibility. If you have a time frame that you need to be into a certain home at a certain time and you're doing a short sale, you may be facing the reality that you may be moving twice. Okay? You want to have flexibility in doing a short sale that you can wait it out if the deal's good enough, because it can be an opportunity to make a pretty good deal on a home. So that's how the short sale works. It's just a myriad of paperwork, of waiting, and getting through the process. Some are better than others. Depends on your particular situation and your loan. Now, let me talk about something. You may be in a position that maybe you're in a tough spot with your home. Okay? Maybe you're looking at the foreclosure looming. Maybe you're thinking of short sale of an option. I think the option that probably there is the key word. There are always options, and get as much information as you can. When you're looking at a foreclosure, you're talking about something that could be impacting on your credit for 7 years. Okay? There are big decisions, and you don't want to make mistakes in how things are taking place. Feel free to call me. I'll be able to sit down with you, look at your particular situation, and help develop what would be the best long-term strategy for you. Maybe the credit's taking a hit right now, but what can you do to have it in better shape down the line? There's always options. Just make sure before you make any decisions you get as much information as possible. Hey, I hope this has been helpful, learning a little bit about foreclosures. If you want to know more, just let me know. And of course, if you're looking to buy or sell a house, have MisterOlathe.com be your first contact. Make it a great day.